I understand that many in the Trump camp believe that if you fix immigration, you'll fix America. They have called for mass deportation, and Trump promised them he would do so. And now he's delivering. So much that he's doing it without due process. But surely a bunch of constitutionalists can't be happy with the way that Don is doing this. The Fifth Amendment clearly states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. Last week in Maryland, resident Kilmar Abrego Garcia was mistakenly deported to the notoriously violent prison in El Salvador. A judge ordered Kilmar be returned to the U.S., and despite the Trump administration dragging its feet, the Supreme Court has ruled in Kilmar's favor 9-0. Let's talk about it. Okay, so I wanted to have a two-part conversation about this. He's doing it without due process. Now, to his defense, he did sign an executive order which does, in theory, grant him some power to do what he's doing. But, I mean, the Trump administration even admitted that they deported this kid wrongfully, by accident, and they've been dragging his feet to get it back. So my question to you guys in the panel, and anybody can open it up who wants to speak, isn't this a slippery slope? Isn't this dangerous the way he is deporting people?
Absolutely. I mean, this is America. You're allowed for due process. That's guaranteed to you whether or not you're an illegal alien just by being on the U.S. ground. And I think it's terrifying in the first place that we're sending people off to El Salvador. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, I don't think that's really a good place to find some savings. I get that we're trying to save some money, but the El Salvador prison doesn't seem appropriate. Yeah. I think we just need to take our time, take a deep breath, and give people what they came to America for, which is due process. Even if they have broken the law, we can find that out and then
absolutely due process gives them. And I'm going to go to the man over there who's kind of giving us the eyes, because I mean, hey, listen, sending him to El Salvador, it is cheaper, Gerard.
Mm-hmm. What due process did he use to come into this country? Mm-hmm. So we have to be held to a higher standard than they. You understand? At some point, if you play by rules that other people don't play by, you're not noble, you're a sucker. And this is the game that the left has been playing forever, right? Like, oh, here's the idea. Oh, well, he's a citizen. He deserves this. He's not. He's an undocumented citizen. No, he's not. We can't just change the labels of things. We can't engage in a marketing and an empathy battle. Well, listen, buddy, you effed around and you found out. You
right, but he didn't F around the way that they said, and then they just sent him to some random prison. That was the problem.
What he didn't F around the way they said, correct. But is he here illegally?
I think that's up to the courts to decide.
That's what the due process is. Yeah. Courtney, let Courtney jump in.
Didn't the court rule that he was here illegally?
No, a judge ordered him back. He actually was.
The judge ordered him back, but they did rule that he was here illegally.
No, they said that he
wasn't a terrorist and he shouldn't be. That's what they said.
That's what the media said. The judge ordered him back because he had the right. He had a temporary green card.
Let's get the facts. I mean, let's not argue, about hypotheticals. Let's get the facts. Is he here illegally? Yes or no?
But the due process is what's supposed to, and that's a whole. Let me tell you something. People have legalities to come to this country if they seek because they're a political prisoner. A situation has happened in their country.
Is that what he did?
We don't know that. He didn't have his due process. Courtney, you jump in.
I think that is really the question, is whether or not he's here legally. Yeah. And I think that if they're here illegally, there needs to be a line. I mean, we're the only country that lets people in and grants them the kind of privileges without being here legally. Yeah. And I think at this point, we see the ramifications of that, and we need to start drawing them on.
Well, do we send them to El Salvadorian prisons, though? That's, I think, where it's getting a little bit creepy.
There need to be consequences for actions.
But why not to their own country after they go through some kind of a trial?
The majority of the people who are clearly didn't want to be in their country. The majority of the people who are being deported to El Salvador, she's right, they're Venezuelan. And there's a misconception about who they are.
I got to tell you, one of the funniest things in the whole world to me is people waving the flag at a protest of a country they don't want to go back to. Yeah. It's one of the most ridiculous.
But what does that have to do with due process?
What's that have to do with due process?
Okay, I mean, you don't like them, I get it.
The concept of due process, as we have to do due process to deport them when they didn't engage in due process to come into the country, play the game by their rules.
But wait a second.
I think that's baby stuff. I don't know.
Who's paying for all this? Right, so you have ideas about where they should be sent back, the process which they should, the due process before we decide to send them back. Who's going to pay for all this?
Well, how would it change? I agree. It is a question who's going to pay for it. But how would that change by giving people, their day in court before sending them off somewhere? I think that's like a different problem that you're discussing, right?
No, I think it's quite.
Or do you think the cost of going to the court?
But even somebody who trespasses gets their day in court. It clearly states, the Fifth Amendment, that every person gets a right to due process. They just get that right.
Who's trespassing pays taxes.
Yeah.
So they paid into the system for that due process. Somebody who's here illegally does not. So that's again, the question is who's paying for it.
Well, do we want to be a country that just brutally says, oh, well, you're not from here, we're just going to treat you like trash and send you to an El Salvadorian prison?
But we don't.
But isn't that what you're proposing as the alternative?
The whole problem is that we've given them all of these privileges. We paid for their medical. A lot of them go to school here. So we've already.
I mean, that's a broad stroke brush for a lot of different types of people.
Let me interject for a second here. Do you know statistically, and even the Trump administration has admitted that 90% of the people they're sending, first of all, don't have a bad, serious criminal record. Some of the criminals' activities that the worst people ever were, misdemeanors, and they haven't had their day in court. But do you understand too, as well, that the immigrants that come to this country create crime at a far lower rate than American citizens? I mean, it's just something to be said about that, Gerard.
It's also not true.
No, it is true.
No, it's not.
They're charged at they're charged at a lower rate.
The reason it's not true is because it's how are you documenting that?
Correct. If crime is not documented, it doesn't mean crime doesn't exist. As somebody I'm sure you really looked up to, Donald Rumsfeld, once said, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Yeah, right.
My favorite dude, by the way.
So is he really?
No.
I'm like, who would ever look up to him? Okay. I think we can all agree on.
Here's the thing. This is a pragmatic conversation. We have a housing crisis in this country. We have an issue with our labor force. We're being undercut by millions of people that are low wage, off the books people that aren't paying into the system, that are taking up low income housing, that are breaking almost every rule that we have. Okay? Every rule. Then they're getting subsidized to do so in our American cities.
Why are they breaking the rules? And what are the rules that you're saying that they're breaking? Because they're taking money that's being given to them? Or you think that they're not showing up to court? Like, what specifically are you talking about?
The first rule is how they came here.
Let's be very specific. Are they here legally?
Okay, let me ask you a different question.
If you're going to ask questions, I ask the questions, right? Like I answer the question.
I don't think that just because somebody's here legally, then everything else that they do is basically,
that's
carte
the
blanche
theory, by the way, though, right? If you're here illegally, you're already breaking the law.
Wait, can I just take it back a step? Have you ever met somebody who tried to get into the U.S. legally, like on a personal level? Do you know people that have? Because in my experience, they have a really hard time. And these are people that are from good families, wealthy people paying thousands of dollars to attorneys, and they still can't come around. So if the government isn't implementing the already existing immigration laws, why give them more power over it? And are they really suitable to even fix that problem in the first place, since they're the ones who are creating a screwed up system that's hard to participate in legally?
Valerie,
I would just say those are two separate. Oh, sorry. I would just say those are two separate issues. So the process of legal immigration in this country, is one issue, and then dealing with people who are already here illegally is a separate issue.
And I have a different theory after Gerard goes about that. So
So do you think all people who are here illegally are bad?
No, let's one question at a time. Gerard, go ahead.
No, but that leads to what I'm saying. So respectfully, you're asking for a legal argument. And then when we give you the legal argument, you immediately turn to an emotional response, right?
What was the emotional response specifically?
Specifically?
Yeah.
Is everybody here bad?
I think that's a reasonable question, because you're saying that basically they broke one law and now we're just going to go run roughshod over them.
You do paint a lot of them in a big
I think a lot of people coming here are normal.
Let's go one at a time. I'm sure that breaks your bleeding heart. But the fact of the matter is that
I just think you're wrong.
The fact of the matter is that you asked if they committed crimes.
Right.
Yes.
Let's be factual.
Exactly.
They committed a crime the second they came here illegally.
Wrong.
Also, everybody commits a crime. And did you ever hear of that book, 3 crimes a day, everybody's always breaking? I mean, which ones are enforced and which ones are not? I think that lots of people...
All right, wait. Let's stick on this. Let's stick on this subject. They did not necessarily break a crime right here. We have laws that says people can seek refuge, especially, and this is the second part of the argument I want to get to, the causation of illegal immigration, right, is what? our American foreign policy.
Absolutely.
We have 100 bases in Latin America. They're not the Boy Scouts there. It's an occupation. They're stealing the resources. The same multinational corporations that screw all the Americans here are causing the people to come here because they're stealing all the resources over there. I know you've heard of the UFC before, which was the United Fruit Company, which eventually became Dole and Chiquita. The majority of the bananas in Guatemala are not owned by Guatemalans. They can't keep these countries destabilized so they can take the resources for pennies on the dollars, and they also thrust the monetary system on there. So aren't these people who are coming, they're coming because of our foreign policy, of us initially breaking the law? You can respond to that.
Maybe. Yeah. I won't deny. I'm not here to justify American foreign policy over the last 60 years.
I know.
Administrations. What I'm talking about is the here and now.
Yeah.
And the here and now is that there are too many people that we cannot support that are a strain on the system, okay?
Yeah.
That are creating a system of insecurity for the middle class and lower middle class Americans.
Yeah.
Okay? And I would love it if our immigration system was easier. I think our immigration system needs a complete overhaul. I would love it if we were able to trade one for one every leftist Berkeley white woman and one for one give me a hardworking Guatemalan tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you can't just
I'm with you on that trade, by the way. Even as a leftist.
Absolutely. I'll take that trade tomorrow, man. We'll take every leftist in California and give me every small business owner in Canada. Make that trade. Yeah. But I also know if it was conservatives roughshotting through the northern border from Canada to escape the commies up north, there would be a northern iced wall faster than you could say Barack Obama. If we were turning the purple states red on the northern wall by these Canadians escaping their socialist utopia, their 10-year negative GDP, then there would be a shut down northern border, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a fan, but I think they have better health care than us. Do you want to piggyback on anything he said there? I know you don't. The libertarian will tell you, no, I don't want that. But go ahead,
definitely
Courtney.
don't want their health care.
Yeah.
I've experienced it. I don't want their health care. But I very much agree. And I think that it's conflating issues to talk about, the foreign policy and to talk about the...
Why is that a conflation, though?
Because you have to deal with one issue.
But that's the cause why they're coming.
Yeah, they're kind of related. I see what you mean.
Make sure you're talking to Mike.
They're not
100%
related because you're talking about corporations and you're also talking about foreign policy. So first of all, those I would say are actually two separate issues right there.
Mm-hmm. Would you?
Yes, I absolutely would.
The corporations and the oligarchs and the fascist, corporatists don't control the government and the foreign policy. They're hand in hand. I mean, stocks across the board.
I think they impact.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they necessarily always control.
Yeah.
They're definitely, I think there's a relationship there. But I think that those are separate issues. And you can't say that because, well, one thing, first of all, it's a really hard thing to prove, right? We'd have to first deal with that issue. Is that really what's causing them to come here? And I don't think it's what's causing all of them to come here. A lot of people are coming here because they get things here that they won't get elsewhere. Yeah. And they get it for free.
That's what Thomas Massey said to me when I said, no, it's the fact that we're taking, their resources and whatnot. And, I think our foreign policy, I don't know, Tati, if you want to talk about it, our foreign policy is directly tied to this issue. I believe it is 100%. There's 100 bases in Latin America. And here's the thing, as a guy who's gone down to 7 Latin American countries over the last 3 years, observed 5 of their elections, you can use the American dollar wherever you're at in Latin America because we make sure that their dollar is pegged to our dollar. We've thrust these huge IMF loans on them, and then they can't pay them, and we take back with austerity measures, and then they come fleeing to the border. I mean, didn't Gaddafi say, if you get rid of me, your foreign policy, you remove me, and the refugees going to Europe will be so much that you can't take. And sure enough, when they removed him, all of a sudden, it was crazy. I mean, this has been proven time and time again. They're directly connected.
Can we agree that we all think that the illegal immigration is bad, right? So what would be your ideal way of dealing with these people? Just obviously not round them up on a truck. I think you have something a little bit more nuanced there. So what is the solution in order to deal with people that are obviously here? We're all saying, all right, you guys can't stay here. No more goodies. Okay, I can get behind that. But how do we implement that, from a practical perspective? Because they're trying and it's not going so well.
And these are human beings, by the way, too. Right? We can't forget my empathetic. I'm being at my bleeding heart liberal here, but they are human beings.
But by the way, because of that, if you disagree with me, you're the bad guy. The concept here is not about the Guatemalan farmer who has been abused by Dole Farms in 1965. And that is not the cross for the small business owner in El Paso to bear.
Yeah.
You know, it's not for the
I agree there.
It's not the nurse.
Some of them take advantage of labor and have a better advantage, but you know that's a different
their property
question.
values deserve to go down because
I don't
Dole
think it's
was
their property
evil
values.
in 1965.
Well, it's cheaper to hire people from other countries, whether they're illegal or not. I mean, they do compete with like the unions and stuff like that.
Correct.
So.
And how does that affect the American middle class and the workforce?
Well, my father's business did better because he was able to compete more, because he was able to hire people properly as he saw fit. Not illegally necessarily, just not everybody was in a union.
No, so non-union. So conflating non-union and illegal is a very, very different thing, right? So, I mean, I also know people, if we want to get down that road, I know people that liked hiring illegals because if they got hurt on the job, they can just throw them in the river.
Yeah.
So there's that too.
I get you. Yeah.
So I mean, you know, that in a different life.
I mean, they do have free will to take the job or not, right? I mean, they're not like actual slaves.
Thrown in a river?
Is that anybody saying
let
that?
Courtenay. Hold on a second.
Right?
Unions are totally separate issue. I mean, they're right to work states. It's not.
I'm just saying that I don't think that the illegals are all hurting the job market particularly. I think that there's pluses and there's minuses.
I
don't
believe
think
they're
it's
being
just
exploited, by the way. I believe
possible,
that part of the reason why they have this labor coming here, the corporatists, the oligarchs, those who manipulate government want them to come here because they can take advantage of them. But there's also the fact that if we did, let's just say for argument's sake, deport 5 million immigrants tomorrow, and most of them were the ones who have no paperwork, came in illegally. They're going to have the lowest level jobs. You're not afraid that you're going to pay $6 for a head of lettuce tomorrow? You think that this generation of Americans are going to get out there and start picking fruit?
We should have definitely kept slavery because clothing's very expensive.
And you know what people. You know what I really think?
I just want to say, let's be realistic.
Who's going to pick the cotton?
I'll be very
robots.
Very realistic here and throw in a total monkey wrench, but I think they're actually really thinking that those jobs will largely be replaced by robots. So yeah,
and we don't want that there, Coven, the AI generation.
Listen, here's my honest opinion about it. Sans sass. Somebody from Guatemala who's making $3 an hour can't get to the American border in these caravans where people are wearing Nikes. Who is paying, who is coordinating, who is organizing, and why is it always not the Catholic Church involved in it? How are these people getting on their feet from northern South America and Central America to the American southern border? These are impoverished, as you said, and these are oppressed working class Zapatistas that are somehow walking their way through an entire continent and getting to our border and knowing where to get through our border. That is something that needs to be taken a look at. Because by definition, that's human trafficking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So somebody is trafficking those humans.
Yeah.
Somebody is coordinating them, organizing them, bringing them, right? Yep. What's happening along that way? As you said early, clearly no crime. Because no crime is being done on that at all. Yeah. All those women are 100% safe. All those children are 100% safe because there's no rape reported. So how can there be rape happening?
Well, you know, when you're talking about what happens in Latin America, a little bit different than when you're talking what happens over here. I still believe, honestly, most of the people that come here, the majority of them are workers. They're sending money back home because as you understand, everybody knows here that the dollar here goes a long way in Latin America. I want to retire there one day because I'm going to get a big bang for my buck. But let's stick on this subject over here because I do believe this. When people tell me, well, Pasta, you don't think the UN has anything to do with this? Operation Phoenix, which saw a bunch of northern Vietnamese picked up and deported and dropped in South Vietnam. I do believe there is some of that going on. I believe they're exacerbating the problem that already exists. But I do believe, and maybe Courtenay, you can lead into this about there has been a lot of evidence because we can't leave it out. It is part of the equation where there's another NGO kind of funding this, bringing people over here. And I don't think that everybody that comes here is getting all these iPhones and big TVs and stuff. I mean, I've seen a lot of evidence that shows they're shoving 8-9 immigrants into one hotel room in New York, but the New York hotel could then charge the federal government 5 times, 6 times the rate. So they're taking advantage of, once again, I say it's the corporatists taking advantage. But do you want to talk a little bit about this whole kind of UN throwing fuel on the fire and kind of funding some of this mass deportation?
Yeah, so I don't have like
immigration,
mass immigration.
I don't have facts and statistics, on like the details of this, but this is a very long range plan. Of course, we can look to the document. It was a migration replacement for all. Eric Weinstein wrote, and he worked for the UN between 2000 to 2002, and that became kind of the blueprint for this migration policy that was very effective in, we'll just say the immigration problem we're seeing in Europe right now. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but a really great reference if people are curious to look into is a book by Ion Ritu. It's called The Milner-Fabian Conspiracy, and it goes into large history of that. But we're now seeing those policies, really the ramifications of that here in the United States. And it's very similar. It's just a different population that's being thrust into here. And this is a UN agenda to destabilize. And
I
think
to globalize.
To globalize, exactly. Well, to destabilization as a conduit to globalization.
So we get our global federation and all one world government and all that.
And I do think that's a huge part of it. I don't think that it's being done just by, NGO funding or necessarily corporatist funding. I do think depending on the different locations.
Bilderberg.
Right. Well, that would be NGO, but I think there's also, cartel, mafia working in partnership, and they have a nice scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of deal going.
Yeah. Last question here. I'm going to hand it off to Gerard to let him finish it off. And by the way, the cartels work for the CIA. So once again, it's our problem. We learned this from Iran-Contra, but that's beside the point.
The name of the show should be Reckless Allegations.
Right? I have plenty of documentation.
The CIA and the cartel are in bed together?
Whether I think it and whether I state it as a fact, two different things.
I feel like that's a pretty
Iran-Contra. I think it's pretty well known. But anyways, listen, why do you think that this problem should be at the top of the list? I mean, I know you lean more on the right side, but I don't understand why so many people on the right think if you fix this issue, you'll fix America.
Well, it's very costly.
Yeah. I mean, what are your thoughts? Wrap it on up. Final thoughts.
Look, I'm the grandson of an immigrant from Ireland. The new people have always had problems. There was the Know Nothing Party that existed specifically to get rid of Catholics in America, right? So anytime somebody comes into an area, especially lower middle class areas, the immigrants aren't going into Martha's Vineyard. They're not going into, God bless you. It's seen by the masses. Where are the masses? The masses are at the lower levels. We're living in apartment buildings. We're living in Manhattan. We're living where we're seeing this. And people are seeing they're losing their job. They're this, they're that. It's easy to point to somebody and say no. But there's also, we're not getting the doctors and engineers and physicists from these countries, right? So there's a real threat when you get people that their own country didn't want. They empty prisons. They come here. We have a right in our country.
You just said about throwing allegations out there without proof and stating them as facts.
Venezuela did it.
No, wait. The Venezuelan situation is a little bit different.
Of course it is.
The Venezuelan gangsters that came here, and Donald Trump sat there and honored Juan Guaido there. And these are Carlos Vecchia people.
No, I know.
These are people who are against the Maduro government that came here, that Biden allowed to come.
And that's
right.
And that's why they took over those apartment complexes in Colorado, just for peaceful protest against the Maduro.
Once again, it's a government that your boy supported. Donald Trump supported. Juan Guaido stood up. Listen, I don't want to
support everything Donald Trump does.
But he supported that government.
The people that live here have a right to feel safe in their communities. They have a right to feel like their property values are not being submarined by some foreign bureaucracy and NGOs. And do I think it should be our number one concern? No, I don't. But does that mean it shouldn't be a concern? No, it should. At the end of the day, whether we want to agree with the severity of the crime or whatever, they are trespassing. They didn't do things the right way. They need to leave. Yeah. And then I'd love anybody that wants to be in America, I want you in America. Anybody that wants to work hard, I want you here. Some of the best people I know are immigrants. We're all family of immigrants. That doesn't mean you wait online. I know waiting online sucks, but that doesn't mean you get to cut to the front because, you know, somebody 60 years ago cut the line at Six Flags and now you're the grandkid.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's not the way this works.
It's funny because I think as I look at you, we're both, children of immigrants. You look more Italian. I think I look more Irish. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Wake up, America. We got things to discuss. Come right back with us.